Good morning, everyone. Jonathan Miller from brokenStones here again for another one of our brokenStones business podcasts. Today, joining me, Richard Kerry from Bell Lax Solicitors. Welcome, Richard.
Morning, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad, thanks.
Thank you for joining me today. For the benefit of obviously Richard and people joining for the first time, this is one of the brokenStones podcasts. We've been talking to a variety of different local businesses, both around Lichfield and Tamworth and Sutton Coldfield as well, and really getting to know the business owners, the business directors, finding out more about their business, finding out some of their history and what got them into the business sector they're working in. Try and get the last few podcasts we've done, people have been giving some really, really good advice about careers, about working remotely, about staff health and things like that. But I think we'll start, Richard, maybe if you could just give us a brief overview of your business and maybe what got you into it in the first place.
Well, Bell Lax has been going 26 years now. It was formed, when would that be?
26 years ago.
Yeah, 26 years ago. So I couldn't do the maths quickly enough there. Yeah, by Heather Bell and Peter Lax, hence the name. My business partner and I, Suzanne Holder, we took over almost exactly 6 years ago, 1st of June 2015. And we are a firm of solicitors, but we specialise in disputes. So basically anything that could end up going to court that isn't criminal. So that means we do personal injury claims, medical negligence. We have a very good family team, and we also do a full range of commercial and civil disputes, professional negligence claims, contract disputes, shareholder and director. As I say, anything that could end up going to court that isn't criminal.
You've mentioned this to me previously in terms of the cases that you do get involved with. I guess they have to be fairly meaty in terms of work to get you guys involved.
Indeed. I mean, clearly we prefer the cases with significant value and complexity because, without wishing to sound too mercenary, that's where we make our good money from. As a general rule, because any case with a value of less than £10,000, if court proceedings are issued, is going to be allocated to what's known as the small claims court. And while there's nothing to stop you having a solicitor act for you in a small claims case, it's extremely rare that the courts would ever award you your costs. So the risk there, if you're bringing a claim for less than £10,000, is what you're paying your solicitor to run the case may be greater than the value of the claim. So there's little point in instructing a solicitor. So yes, in answer to your question, Jonathan, we prefer bigger, meatier cases with significant value.
How would I, as a consumer, if that's the right way to describe myself, how would I come across you guys? How would I get to the stage where I needed you, and how would I get in touch with you guys?
We're very proud of our online marketing. I think if you type into Google or search engines, dispute resolution solicitors, Sutton Coldfield, personal injury, medical negligence, family and divorce, all the areas of work we do, I'm very proud that we come very high on the rankings for those search engines. We have effectively a high street presence in our relatively new offices on Mill Street in Sutton Coldfield. So those are generally the ways, and I'm pleased to say, because we've been going 25 years, we have a good reputation, and so a lot of our work comes in by word of mouth.
This is going to sound like a really daft question from somebody who doesn't understand the law now. How would I know if I got to the stage where I was in a dispute? Is it literally a case of me saying yes, somebody else saying no, or vice versa, and there's no solution? Where do we go?
I think that's a good way of thinking about it, that people get into disputes and very often these things can be resolved quite quickly. I suppose the obvious answer is, if you think, and this is simplifying it somewhat, but if you think somebody owes you a significant amount of money and they are saying, I'm not going to pay you that because you yourself haven't complied with your side of the bargain, you're in breach of contract. The reason I'm not paying you for the widgets you've supplied is the widgets were late, they were faulty. When I put them into my machinery, it's caused further problems. And the other way around, if somebody's demanding money from you and you think, well, I don't think I should have to pay for these widgets for the reasons I just gave, it seems like that's the time to speak to a solicitor. But our view is we're generally happy to speak to people at an early stage and give them a bit of guidance, because it's always sensible to avoid litigation, the actual commencement of court proceedings wherever possible. And we do pride ourselves on trying to sort out the vast majority of disputes without that ever becoming necessary. So it's always more awkward for us if somebody comes to us and says, I have been served with court proceedings, what do I do? And unfortunately, the answer to that is, well, we can help you, but it's going to be much more expensive than if you'd come to us when these issues first arose.
Is there a statistic about what percentage of cases go to court, or?
Going to court, if you mean going to trial, I've been a solicitor 27, nearly 28 years, always doing dispute work and litigation work. And I don't think I've had more than 10 trials in all that time, which surprises a lot of people. I think they think I'm in court dealing with trials weekly, if not monthly. And in many ways, I think that's a good thing, because I've managed to resolve those disputes without it needing to go to trial. In terms of going to court, if you mean issuing court proceedings, sometimes that is necessary, particularly if you're acting for a claimant where you have a defendant who just isn't treating things seriously. By issuing court proceedings, that can really bring them to their senses and make them realize that they can't keep burying their heads in the sand, and they've got to deal with it. And often that has the effect of making them go to solicitors who hopefully are giving similarly sensible commercial advice, which is, you do not want this to go to trial. Let's try and find a solution before that stage comes about.
It's fascinating, because I mean, to the uninitiated like myself, who don't work in your industry or whatever, I think a lot of us expect you to be in court all the time. We expect you to be
no. As I say, I with some pride, the fact that I don't think I've had more than 10 trials in all those years, because it means I am resolving disputes. When I'm acting for a claimant, they don't want to wait for a case to go to trial. I generally advise that if we're issuing proceedings for a client, trial isn't going to be for 9 or 18 months after those proceedings are issued. That's a very long time to wait. And going to trial is inherently risky, because both sides generally think that they've got a good case and that they're telling the truth and the judge will believe them. But every case has a risk if you go to trial. And if you lose, not only if you're the claimant, are you not getting your money, and if you're the defendant, you're being ordered to pay the other side money. The costs are, can often be crippling, whether you're a business or an individual.
How was this is naturally leading on now, in terms of the last 18 months or so, I presume the courts have been closed as such. How has that affected what you're doing? Has there been any effect there or not?
It has, but actually I think in a way it's been quite a good thing that the courts have finally had to embrace technology. And really, there were telephone hearings have been around for sort of 10, 12 years now, at least I would have thought. But they're now listing, as they call it, hearings by telephone and video link far more frequently. And of course, it's just the sensible way to deal with things. Sometimes in the past, I would go to a court hearing that might last 15, 20 minutes. And I would drive an hour to get there, or go on the train, an hour back. Very often you're sitting around waiting. Whereas now, if I'm waiting for the court hearing to come online, I'm at my desk, I can be getting on with something else. And you're saving the client much more money. I mean, it just seems ridiculous now, 25 years ago, how much of my work I was charging clients for was traveling from the office, if I was working in Birmingham, to a court hearing in Bristol or Manchester, or even as close as Wolverhampton. Clients are paying you to sit in the car or sit on the train. So I think in many ways it's been a good thing. It's made the court system embrace technology far better.
That's really encouraging to hear. I mean, we certainly, as an IT provider, a managed services provider, the common belief in our industry is that IT, because of the last 18 months, has probably moved on between 5 and 7 years, which is magnificent, really, and people embracing it. And it's good to hear how it's happening in your sector as well, because I presume it makes things easier and more cost effective for the client. I presume it means you can do more work, more billable hours, I guess, as well.
Absolutely. while you can charge a client for traveling, it always feels somewhat wrong in a way, because all you're doing is listening to the radio while you're driving there. Whereas I say, I can be sitting at my desk working on something else, and then the link comes up and says, the judge will be ready to hear from the parties in the next minute. You put that work to one side, you get on with it. 20 minutes later, you're back on it. You're not driving all over the West Midlands or the country. So no, it's been one of those few benefits that have come out of the last 18 months.
I mean, you've probably preempted one of the questions I was going to ask later, but technology obviously makes businesses work better and more efficiently across the board. You've been in the legal sector for, like you say, a good number of years now. How does apart from obviously the ability to do less travel and wasted time, what else does technology offer to you as a business?
The speed of communication is obviously so much better. I started out, because I am that old, as a qualified solicitor, where we didn't send things by email. Everything went by post or fax, and you'd think to yourself, well, I've sent that letter off. I won't hear anything now for at least a week, because it's going to take a day or two to get there. The other side will have, fair enough, a couple of days to think about it, and if they write back, that'll be another day or two. So it does mean things speed up so much more quickly. I can send a letter by email and maybe get a response today, whether that's something to my client, the other side solicitors, whoever it may be. So just the speed of things, because litigation and disputes, it's extremely worrying, I think, for a lot of clients. It's not something anybody should really want to be involved in. We are a distress purchase. We're not, as the old advert used to say, we are literally not here for the nice things in life. We don't, as a business, sell conveyancing, which for most people is quite a good thing. Most people are quite pleased when they're buying a new house, whether you're a first-time buyer, or you're buying that forever home, you're moving into a big family home. Most people are very pleased with that. So because we're sorting out the nastier things in life for people, the quicker and more efficiently we can do it through technology, the better.
Yeah, it must take some of the stress out, because there's nothing worse than waiting, especially when it's affecting your livelihood and your family, I guess.
Absolutely.
In terms of, I don't want to get too embroiled in this, but obviously you're dealing with a lot of very, very sensitive data and people's livelihoods. I guess security is obviously key to what you do on a day-to-day basis as well.
Oh, absolutely. The data protection regulations are something which affect all industries now. Solicitors have, for many years, the way we're regulated, have a very tight duty of confidentiality to clients. While I may on occasion mention very sort of vague facts about a case, I would never dream of telling anybody the names of any of our clients, because that is entirely confidential. So it's important for us that the technology we have, that we have to be certain when we are sending emails and receiving information from clients, that it's all kept as confidential as possible.
In terms of as a business, obviously you've got the lovely new offices in Sutton Coldfield now. Do you see yourself as a very regional business? Is it a Birmingham centric? Is it Midland centric? Where do you get most of your work?
Most of our clients are local, for perhaps obvious reasons. I think a lot of people walk past the office, and as I was saying earlier, the word of mouth way of generating work. We all know, everybody who works here knows people locally. I know you, I know brokenStones, and other businesses locally are always a good source of work. But one big advantage of technology now is that in the past, where we perhaps wouldn't, as a profession, I mean, rather than Bell Lax, as a profession, might have been difficult to take on a client who was based, more than sort of 50, 60 miles away. Now I can have a meeting with a client over Zoom or Teams. We can email across all the documents, whether that's putting them in Dropbox or just a standard email. We don't have to go out and see clients. Clients don't need to come to us. I've recently been acting for a client. It was a dispute over a property. The property was in Dover. The client lived in Yorkshire. Client never came to see me. I never went to see her. Never needed to go to the property. It was all done from here in Sutton Coldfield. You can do that much more easily now. It's very rare that we need to go out. Clients want to come in and see us on occasions, and that's fine. But most clients take the same view. Well, why waste my time traveling, whether it's half an hour or a couple of hours, to see a solicitor in an office when I can do it online?
Brilliant. Fairly sweeping question now, I guess. What do you see as the challenges facing your industry and your business?
I think that the biggest challenge perhaps facing our industry seems to have gone. It was COVID, and hopefully, now we're coming out of it, and hopefully the economy is going to get back to better times with the hospitality industry. Like any industry, if people are running out of money, you have to wonder whether they have the money to spend on the product or the service that you provide. There is an old thinking in the sort of law we do with litigation that actually sometimes a bit of a downturn in the economy can be quite good for us, because those deals that people might ordinarily be doing in good times dry up, and people start thinking, well, hang on, rather than deal with this £500,000 investment we were going to make, that's fallen through, but let's now chase up those smaller 50, 60, maybe £100,000 that we weren't so bothered about previously. So I don't think there are any immediate challenges for us. I think we as a business have certainly come through the pandemic pretty well. And as I say, actually, the increased use of technology has been a significant benefit, coupled, of course, with the fact that our staff are now very easily able to work from home, which is the majority of them really like, and we're perfectly happy with it. It's worked very well.
I guess people might be interested to hear this in terms of case studies. I guess a good example of could you give the listeners a good example of something that you guys have worked on, which will give people a flavour of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wide variety of work we do. As I say, we have a family department, which I think most people can understand what that involves. It's couples divorcing, having to have a division of the matrimonial assets, and very often, and this is often the most difficult and sensitive part, is dealing with child contact issues when children are moving between two parents. Our personal injury and medical negligence department, we tend to focus on again, very sad, significant injuries, brain injuries, medical negligence cases where often they can be properly life-altering injuries. Yes, we would deal with, you slip on some spilt milk in a supermarket and break your arm. That's very nasty, but hopefully eventually your arm's fine. But we do specialize in really what we call catastrophic injuries. And then in the commercial and civil team, that's a full range of stuff. We deal with cases with disputed probate. We're seeing a lot of that these days, where families, particularly blended families, where people have remarried and they have children from earlier marriages, contesting money going to the stepfather or stepmother, and arguing that when they've been left out of the will, it's because aged parents or grandparents had lost mental capacity. We're seeing a lot more of that, I think, as people are living longer and are dying with more money. It's some people see that as worth fighting over. And we deal with a lot of commercial disputes, shareholder director disputes, when business owners fall out with each other. Those are financially often very significant, because businesses can be worth many millions of pounds, and some directors feel that they're being shoved out by their co-owners, and they want their fair share of the pie.
Are we becoming a more litigious society, would you say? I can't see John Grisham.
I don't think we are, actually. I think that's something that the press likes to suggest quite a lot, particularly when they talk about personal injury, no win, no fee. They get very het up about it, certain sections of the press, that it's awful and there's people out for compensation. But the reality is, the fraudulent claims, there's no point in solicitors bringing fraudulent claims on a no win, no fee, because the courts are very, very good at spotting fraudulent cases. Judges sit, for large portions of their time listening to people give evidence, and they're very good at spotting people who aren't telling the truth. and there's no benefit to any solicitor in bringing a case where you have a client who's not telling the truth on a no win no fee basis, because if you don't win, you're not getting paid, and that's a lot of work down the drain in those circumstances. So no, I don't think we're becoming more litigious. I think that perhaps there are some people who are getting better access to justice. That's been a long time been a problem with government funding cuts to legal aid. It's much harder for people to instruct solicitors. There's unfortunately people sort of the lower economic end of society do find it difficult, and that's why we like to offer, where possible, no win no fee funding for not just personal injury but other commercial and civil disputes where we think clients have a good case. We will often say to them, look, we are prepared to do this on a no win no fee. The dispute I was talking about earlier with the house down in Kent, that was a dispute regarding how a will was being administered, and we were very confident our client would win. The opponent was very stubborn, and we said, look, we will do this on a no win no fee. We're prepared to put our money where our mouth is. And it took a long time, took 2 years, but we did win, and our client got a significant amount of money, and we didn't get paid until the end when she'd won.
Very good. It was encouraging that you didn't go chasing after that ambulance that just went past.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear it.
Which is great. There's obviously a huge amount that we could keep discussing, and we try and keep these podcasts within sort of sensible limits. But in terms of advice out there, we're getting a younger and younger audience listening as well. People who might be thinking about getting into the law. Have you got a couple of sound bites for these people? A bit of advice?
Yeah, I often think that if you want to get into the law, you have to realise that the law is part of society. It's part of the economy. It has a political angle to it as well. And I think anybody who wants to get into the law really does need to keep abreast of current affairs, watch the news, listen to what the government is saying, because law is a combination of precedent decisions made by judges and legislation from Parliament. And a lot of what we do is making sort of commercial and economic decisions for clients, or giving them advice for them to make the decisions. So I think if you want to be a lawyer, you do need to have an understanding of society, of business, of politics, of what's happening in the world.
And not just having read a couple of Grisham novels and
no. I mean, I wish law is as exciting as a John Grisham novel. It rarely, very rarely is.
No, brilliant. Well, listen, Richard, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
With you today. Obviously, we'll be sharing out the podcast on a variety of different media. We'll be putting some contact details in there for you, and links to the website and LinkedIn and stuff like that. But it's been a joy. Thank you for giving good insight on what you do on a daily basis, and we'll be in touch soon.